everyone. Welcome back to a new day, a new shirt. I'm Angela, and I'm here with Jason.
Hi there.
How are you doing, Jason?
I'm great, except still gravelly.
Yep.
Still gravelly.
Yeah. What week is this now?
10 or so, I think.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. We need to figure out what's going on.
Sure, might as well.
All right. Well, we have a lot to unpack this week. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the truth about starting your own business. We're going to get into the driving forces, what it's like, and why you shouldn't start your own business. And yes, I said it, why you shouldn't. So, Jason, I'm going to ask you I'm going to tell you a statement, and I want you to tell me if you agree or if you don't, okay?
Sure.
So freedom and passion, not money, is the main motivation behind starting your own business. Do you agree with this?
Nah, it's a trick question. I mean, if you're starting a business, it's to make money. Otherwise, it would be a hobby. Mm-hmm. So money is, of course, the driving force for it being a business instead of a hobby or something. Most people say freedom, but if you're just looking for freedom, starting your own business isn't necessarily the way to get it. Lots of times you lose a lot of freedoms by having your own business because you've got a lot more responsibilities. So I think passion's the key.
Okay. And then would you say that's your driving force? What made you want to start your own business?
Passion. Yeah. I mean, money because I needed a job, but what I chose to do was a passion decision.
Man, this is 10 years ago now.
Yeah. It's been a little while.
Yeah. How does it feel now that you're 10 years in? Do you look back? Is it a very reminiscent time now that you're...
Oh, yeah. It's all nostalgia this year.
Yeah.
It's, remember when? We should have. I can't believe we did. All the crazy things that you did back in the day kind of thing.
Things you shouldn't have done.
Oh, yeah. Lots of those.
Yeah. I do want to get into this question a little more later, but do you ever look back and see that you have, this army now? Was that how it was back then? Did you start alone or...
Well, it was just two of us at the beginning, and it grew pretty quickly. I mean, we had 10 people at the end of the second month, but I don't think anyone could have predicted it would grow as much as it did.
Mm-hmm. Well, now we're at a point where you're even starting other businesses.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Did you ever have any doubts about opening up?
No.
You knew you were going to succeed?
Yes, because I was going to do what it took to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I didn't have all the answers, but I knew when I ran into problems, I wasn't going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was going to keep going forward no matter what.
Would you say that's something and everyone needs to have if they want to open their own business, that mindset?
Only if you want it to be successful.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yes, if you want to have a successful business, you have to have the mindset that you're going to do whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm. And did you ever ask anyone if you should?
Nope.
Okay.
I think if I had needed to ask someone, I wouldn't have been as certain and I probably wouldn't have been as successful.
And you mentioned you had someone going in when you started 10 years ago. How was that? Was it difficult? Did you guys ever have any bickerments or anything?
God. Well, we started out by fighting.
Oh.
we scheduled a fight.
Oh.
We said, it's possible that we're going to disagree if we go into business together. So why don't we talk about what we'll disagree about? Mm-hmm. And we did what guys do. We went and got drunk.
That's the key to everything.
We went drinking and started talking and said, look, let's just be honest with each other. You worried about this? You think this is going to work? Well, if you think it's going to not work, why? Mm-hmm. And Chad told me everything he didn't like about me in a very short period of time. And I told him everything I didn't like about him in a short period of time. He told me I'm too reckless. He told me I move too fast and I get ahead of myself or I don't listen to people because I'm so busy doing something that I know is right, but they haven't figured it out yet. Mm-hmm. He says, you get too far ahead of people and they can't keep up. And he said, that worries me. Mm-hmm. And I kind of told him the opposite. I said, I feel like you want to stick with what works. You're not ready to adapt to change quick enough. And you get hung up on things that would hold us back. And a lot more personal things than that.
Anything nice to say?
Nope, not during that time. For an hour, we didn't say a nice thing to each other. Mm-hmm. We said, we know the things we like about each other. We know the things we respect about each other. Mm-hmm. We both respected each other's integrity first, intelligence, work ethic. All of those things were there. Mm-hmm. We knew the reasons why we wanted to do it together.
I think you both knowing that you respected each other is... you wouldn't have been in that situation. You wouldn't have said, okay, let's go say what we don't like if you didn't know that there was respect behind that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd had dozens of opportunities to start businesses with other people who wanted to. And I'd said no because I didn't trust that it would work with those people. Chad was the first time that I could envision myself being partners with someone. And it was funny because when we first talked about it, he said the same thing. He said, other lab owners have asked me to come to their labs. They've offered to, set me up if I wanted to be bankrolled. He says, but I never felt comfortable doing it with someone else. He said, this is the first time that I've thought this could really work.
So do you think if someone were wanting to start a business with someone else, is that kind of like a gut feeling that you have, or what advice would you have to someone?
The gut check's got to be there, but then you've got to explore it. And that's what Chad and I did. We said, let's consider all the ways this can go wrong. If you're in a partnership, in any kind of a partnership, a relationship, eventually it's going to end. The happiest married couple on earth, high school sweethearts, who die next to each other at 104 years old, the relationship still ended when they died. By definition, all partnerships end in one way or another. So the most important question to ask is, how could it end? And how do we make sure it ends the right way? So, we have a very complex contract, but the contract isn't so much about starting or running the business. It's about what happens when things go wrong. When we disagree, how does it get resolved without it turning into drama? When we have differing opinions, if one of us wants to grow and the other doesn't, if one of us wants to sell and the other doesn't, if one of us wants to retire and the other doesn't. We have every clause that we could think of worked into the contract so we know what to expect. Whether it ends in 50 years and we both retire as billionaires and sell it to Bill Gates, or whether one of us decides, I don't want to do this anymore tomorrow. We've got every possible clause worked out and how that happens, because it's easy to figure out what you'll do when you're winning. It's really hard to figure out what you'll do when it's ending.
And so then from hearing that, it seems like full transparency is a key.
Absolutely.
To having
You have to have total trust.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're picking a roommate, you have your best friend and you're so excited and you're like, yeah, let's move in together. And then 2 months down the road, you're stuck in a...
And you find out she's a slob.
Yep. Doesn't clean the dishes.
And has boyfriends over late at night and is too loud and doesn't like the same music anymore and everything. Yep.
Yeah. So just being very honest with yourself. Should I actually, do this? Because you want it to go, your 10 years. You want it to do another 10 years.
Yeah.
You want to be stuck with this person for 50 years.
Yep.
So you think you picked a good one?
Oh, yeah.
Good. All right. So do you find it now easier or harder to start a new business? Because right now you're at what? Let's say 5?
Yep.
5 businesses and counting?
Yes.
Does it get easier?
Much.
Yeah.
The physical act of starting a business is really easy. It's a couple of forms. It's registration with the government. It's a bank account and things like that. But more than that, it's the why behind the business. You have to have what's the motivation of the business. You have to treat the business almost like it's a person. It has to have an identity. What's it there for? What's it think about things? How does it behave? And the more you do something, the better you get at it. So it's gotten progressively easier to know the why behind each business. What is it meant to do? Who does it serve and how? What are the rules around how it operates? Not the rules, the legal rules, but the principles that it adheres to. What does it do when a customer is disappointed? What does it do when it has to find an alternative product? How does the company do that? And figure out those rules of behavior gets easier and easier because you can take all the challenges you ran into in previous businesses and say, how would this business act in that situation?
Yeah, and this is why you're so big on words and, like defining, making sure that everything is correctly defined so it can have a meaning and a purpose. So I want to get into how it's been like from the very beginning. Like you said, this is a very reminiscent time.
Yeah.
It's a very happy time. So when you first started your business, did you notice support from people that were around you? Did you see that people wanted you to succeed or...
It was a mix. I mean, obviously the people that were close to me were like, yeah, you're going to kill it. But also a lot of people were negative. They thought we were crazy for the timing and the position we chose in the industry. It was a time when everyone was looking to import cheap work from offshore and just resell it for a markup, that it was too hard to open a manufacturing center in the U.S. to do this. So there were a lot of naysayers. One of the things I did was exclude those people As soon as I realized that they were a negative person, that they were going to be a voice of dissent, I stopped talking to them. I only talk to people who see opportunities. I don't talk to people who see nothing but problems. It's okay as a filtering mechanism to look for the flaws, and critics can help with that. They can help you spot the thing you missed. But critics are boring and tiring people. Yeah. People that only see the negative just drain you of energy.
Yeah.
And they can say it so many times you start to believe it. So I don't like that. I think critics are most often interrupted. A critic is sitting there saying why something won't work, and they get interrupted by someone making it work. And that's what happened with us a lot of times. People would come in and tell us, you're never going to get over 30 people in your lab. You can't get past that size the way you're doing it. And I say that's interesting because we're at 64 people right now.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious, the people that would tell us something was impossible after we were already doing it. They thought we were proposing things when there were things we were already doing.
So do you work in silence? Do you move kind of, not secretive, I would say, but, do you like to keep things to yourself until?
I think quietly.
Okay.
I like to ask questions and reflect quietly. And then I like to be loud because that's how I get dissenting opinions. I like the Socratic method. I like to say, hey, we should paint that wall blue. And have someone go, well, the other wall's green. It's going to clash. I like the Socratic method of people raising objections so I can see if they have merit and work through them or defend against them. Someone says, well, yeah, but the other wall is green. I say, yeah, but the blue I'm thinking is going to look good with that green. And I can keep moving forward because now I've got more input without it being critical input. It's not criticism. It's suggestions of challenges. I love that method. I love proposing an idea and having 3 people pick holes in it.
Yeah. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was it hard ever losing anyone while you were, you took this leap of faith, and if someone wasn't living up to the type of friend that you wanted to have, was it hard losing them in your life?
No, not at the time, because I could tell what they were doing to my psyche. I could tell hearing them be so negative, and I knew they were, in their minds, they were trying to warn me of possible dangers. But in my mind, they just couldn't see how great it could be. So at the time, I consider it cutting loose dead weight, cutting loose negativity, and it served me well. It was a time of unburdening myself from bad karma kind of thing. Later on, when other things happened, like I had several deaths in a row of a key employee, a family member, my father, and a good friend, just one after another. And suddenly it was very quiet. I had a few very close people I shared things with, but I suddenly didn't have kind of that circle of people that I would talk things through with or share with. And it just sounded very quiet suddenly. And I realized how many people I had distanced myself from, and for a brief moment thought, wow, maybe I've isolated myself in a way I shouldn't. I looked back at those people and said, no, those were all good decisions. I just need to now surround myself with more people who are the right people.
Yeah, because you are who you hang out with.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't want to be with a bunch of people that don't want to succeed and turn into those naysayers and turn into someone that's a negative Sally, I guess is what it would mean. You don't want to be a negative Sally.
I hate those people that do nothing but talk about how bad the world is, how bad life is. You're just wasting time and oxygen sitting around complaining. If it's that bad, fix it. Do something about it. If not, shut up. I don't want to hear it. I mean, everybody needs a vent sometimes.
Of course.
That's fine. You got to rant.
There's
to your
a
friends.
good line that, you can't cross that. Not, maybe a day, if you need a day to, okay, everything is horrible right now. I need to just sit in my bed and cry. But now it's Friday and you're still crying. Let's move on. All right. So you have a contract, like you said earlier, with Chad in case everything goes wrong. It seems like you like to leave things on a good note.
Absolutely.
Is that something, if you ended a friendship, has ever been there like a time where you kind of just shut the door on like bad notes?
I don't like to spend time on the past. Even when I left my previous company, I had lawyers begging me to sue my previous company because they'd done some very unethical, illegal things. And I told the attorney I wasn't going to sue him. He said, why not? I said, because my dad used to tell me, no one ever got ahead when they were busy trying to get even. So I try not to expend a lot of mental energy on things that have ended because they ended for a reason. I mean, I'm human. I'll be like, oh, that jerk did me wrong. But I don't want to keep thinking about it. It's funny. There are people with whom I've ended relationships, personal or professional. There are former employees that people tell me, oh man, they're bad-mouthing you. They still talk about you and how much they don't like you. I'm like, they haven't worked here for 3 years. Why do they care?
Some people just don't move on.
They left. Why aren't they moving on with their life? I forgot about them. Why are they still talking about me kind of thing? And it's mostly like that. I try to remember just so I don't repeat a mistake. But no, unless someone's been openly destructive, I just kind of part ways quietly. If someone's been openly destructive, yes. I mean, I Superman punched someone off my front patio not long ago.
Yes, you did.
Because he was being destructive and violent in my home. Something like that needs to end with finality. And in this case, it took violence to end it, literally.
We don't support violence.
No,
just
I
letting
don't
everyone...
encourage violence. But, when a guy hits a girl, he's getting hit if it's in front of me kind of thing. And that kind of thing is so rare that it becomes a story. It's something that we talk about for weeks afterwards because like, oh my God, that never happened.
You just can't believe it happened.
Yeah.
You don't think people are, in that case, you don't think people are that stupid to do that in someone else's home.
But I mean, socially, if I meet people and I'm not clicking with them, I just don't call them the next time. I don't call them and tell them I didn't like them. There's no purpose to that. With employees, if it's not working out, I want to part on the best terms possible. When someone's moving on because they found something else they want to do, I want to encourage them for how that's going to go. When someone's moving on because we've decided they're not a good fit, I want to explain why they're not a good fit so they can look for something that is a good fit. Or if they did something that was just wrong and just they were struggling and I see weaknesses and challenges they have, I might point out some of those things so they can get stronger, but it's not about having bad blood. Once someone's gone, they're gone, and I hope they move on well. I hope they find something that's right for them. So some of the partings have been more difficult than others, and in some cases the other person doesn't understand why it's happening, and you can try to explain it with compassion, but after that, they're gone for a reason.
What would you say, because you've been in this position, obviously, where you had to part from an old company or you have to part from a friendship that maybe it's been a long friendship. Some people don't like to end friendships based on years. What would you say if someone asked you, okay, I'm in the situation right now where I'm working where I don't like it there. I'm not growing. I'm not doing better for myself, or I have a boyfriend that he's dragging me down and they're stuck in these situations. What advice would you give to them to get out of it and to see kind of like the bigger picture?
Tear off the Band-Aid. I mean, just when you've decided something is wrong for you internally, it's over. Whether it's a job, a relationship, family members. I mean, people have terribly destructive relationships with family members only because they're family. And sometimes, I mean, I get it. I was brought up Catholic with Catholic guilt and all those things. I have a tremendous debt to my mom for raising me. She did everything for me from the time I was born. And that's a tremendous debt, and I'll always take care of her. But if a family member was openly destructive, I wouldn't let the fact that we share the same name allow it to continue. A name isn't a license to hurt people, and a label isn't a license to hurt people. Whether the label is boyfriend or boss or cousin doesn't matter. That's a label. So if someone is weighing me down, is hurting me spiritually, socially, emotionally, I have to remove them because there's so much good to do, and people like that just keep you from doing it.
Yeah, I think when I find myself like a thought creeps in, I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't the right friendship that I need to be in right now. And it's hard. Sometimes you don't know the answer, or maybe they're the one that ends the friendship and you don't know it. But as time goes on, you're like, wow, they were really weighing me down.
Oh, yeah.
Look at everything I've done. So I think it's really important to take a look. And like you said, it's hard in the beginning. You had to go through a lot to be able to get to where you're at now. But now that you are where you're at? Are you happy with the people that are surrounding you?
Oh, yeah.
Are you happy with your team?
And I make, by cutting loose some of those people, it got easier to make good decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I realized I was making decisions for the wrong reasons sometimes. I'm making a decision to preserve a relationship, but the relationship is bad.
Mm-hmm.
So the decisions are bad. It's like if you've got a friend that does something wrong, I don't know, they're doing something illegal, but they're your friend. So you want to, quote, stay loyal to your friend.
Mm-hmm.
But loyalty to a person who's doing bad things is a bad loyalty.
Yeah.
If you stay loyal, if I have a friend who mistreats his wife, should I stay friends with him because he's my friend?
No.
Or should I look at the behavior and say, would I even be friends with this person if I saw this side of them beforehand?
Yeah.
Of course not. So the fact that they've been my friend for a while is just sunken cost.
Yeah.
It's just time that's been wasted on a person who's not actually a good person.
Yeah. So it all goes back to who you are, who you hang out with. So
Yeah.
if you're, looking to start your own business or make a bigger move and start growing yourself, you have to look at who you are around and see, are they going to help? Are they going to nurture your growth?
Yeah.
And they're going to support you. Were there any time during these 10 years maybe that you felt like you needed to stop or you wanted to walk away from all of this?
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
There are always moments where you're like, whoa, is this worth it?
Mm-hmm.
There are the days when everything goes wrong. And you go home hanging your head like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?
Yeah.
And that's why it has to be a passion. It can't just be a way to make money. It can't just be, well, I want some freedom. Because as soon as it's difficult, you don't have the freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're questioning why you're doing it. You can only go back to the passion and the cause that you're championing. So there were days that I didn't think went well, weeks that didn't go well.
Mm-hmm.
But there was never a time when I was actually like, oh, I made a bad decision. I shouldn't be doing this.
When you were going through opening up, did you briefly mention last episode that you had a mentor?
Mm-hmm.
How important is it to have someone to kind of help you?
I think it's very important. You have to make a lot of decisions yourself, but having someone to bounce ideas off of
Mm-hmm.
and hear from someone who's further down the road than you are.
Mm-hmm.
People who have opened businesses before make great mentors because they've been through things, if they're open-minded. Sometimes people become closed-minded by their own experiences, so it can be hard to find a really good mentor, but good mentorship is incredibly valuable. I've had 2 really great mentors in my life, and they've shaped my thinking and helped me avoid a lot of pitfalls and traps.
If you find, because sometimes it's hard, like you said, to find someone or that maybe someone doesn't think the same way that you do. What would you recommend to someone that maybe doesn't have the opportunity to have a mentor, but they rely on books or they rely on videos or something? This podcast now. So what recommendation would you give to them?
Great place to start. Books. Read the books, and lots of times books have discussion groups around them.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of times you can find organizations in the community. There are all kinds of government-sponsored organizations to help businesses, especially small businesses, that have all kinds of expertise that you don't have to pay anything for.
Mm-hmm.
You can just go to their programs and learn, and you can find someone there sometimes. Sometimes it's the instructor, or sometimes it's just a person in the audience who's just further along than you are.
Yeah.
I've met people with companies much smaller than ours who I'm at something trying to learn, and they are too, and they start talking to me, and they're like, oh my God, you have your shit together. Why are you even here? You could teach this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm learning too. There's always perspectives. And they'll start asking me questions. I've been a member of a couple of executive roundtables. They'll have banks, financial institutions, lots of times investors or consultants will form a little advisory group where they'll get small business owners together in a room to just discuss topics that are relevant to all of them. And sometimes it's a sales pitch. Sometimes they bring in an accounting firm to pitch their accounting services. But along the way, they teach you some things about tax law.
Mm-hmm.
They'll bring in attorneys to try and pitch their legal services. But along the way, they'll give you some good advice about, legal things relating to hiring practices.
Mm-hmm.
And those kinds of groups, lots of times, it can be a discussion group. You can bounce ideas off of each other. So I would look for things like that. Maybe you don't find an individual mentor, but between your spirit mentors from books and people that you discuss the books with, a lot of good ideas can come out.
Who would you say is your literature mentor?
Ray Dalio today. I love Jack Welch. I love a lot of people, but I've just become fascinated with Ray Dalio and his ability to succinctly take complex ideas and break them down into good logical principles. His book is called Principles, his best book, in my opinion.
I had to start that one on audio. It was for me, it was a tough one to
It's a big
read.
book.
Yeah, so audio is kind of the best. Zach is the one that recommended me to do audio. Yeah. What about fictional characters?
Fictional characters.
Yeah.
I love the ones that create themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man, obviously, is the one everybody points out because I'm a narcissist like Tony Stark. I'm not sure if
Are you sure you like Iron Man? Because I don't know, that suit in your office and and then in your
custom built Iron Man suit that I can wear. I've got lots of signed memorabilia. I've got an Iron Man bust in my office. Iron Man sketches, drawings, paintings in my house. I mean, I love the concept of a person deciding to make themselves into a hero. I loved it when the first Iron Man trailer came out and the first, teaser was some heroes aren't born, they're built. And I loved that. That resonated with me that, he wasn't born with superpowers. He didn't come from another planet. It wasn't an accidental overdose of something. It was a decision. And it was a proactive decision to use what he already had, his intellect and his money, to create something else, a suit, and then to use it. People make jokes about, in some ways, that's what the first business was. It was built out of will and intellect, and now it produces resources and capabilities, and I can use that to do more things.
Yeah. So I want to go back a little bit. You talked about a lot of death and hard times while you were in your, was it your early days of the company or
No,
was it?
It was the last 5 years.
Okay. So you kind of have a different mindset. You kind of are just like you push through and you don't, but not a lot of people are like that. Some people, if there's a death or if, there's a tough situation happening, they want to give up. How, put yourself in those shoes, kind of take yourself out of your mindset that you have your shit together. Like,
take the armor off.
Take the armor off. What would you say to someone that is in that situation right now to continue?
If external things make a person want to give up, maybe they should. Maybe they should find a safer route. If external things make them wonder if they should give up, they shouldn't. Externalities will always be there, whether it's COVID or a death in the family or a competitor who is mudslinging. It's always going to be there. It's never going away. It's been there since you were a little kid. There were kids that teased you on the bus that made you feel bad. You didn't give up then. There was a coach that cut you from the team. Did you give up or did you try out again next year? There's always going to be setbacks and there's always going to be externalities. You can't control those. You can control how you react to them. And Stephen Covey's example of the circle of concern, the circle of influence. Is there something you can do about it? There was nothing I could do about my dad dying. There was nothing I could do about my mentor dying. I couldn't stop it, prevent it, or change it. The only things I could do was try to remember the things they taught me and try to remember the essence of what they were about and make sure it didn't disappear. Pay it forward. Continue in those footsteps of guiding.
Well, you got to a certain point because it was 5 years ago where now there's so many people counting on you. So there is no giving up. You have to be there for them.
Yep.
So maybe that's a factor that they can use into.
Absolutely.
To go ahead.
It's like I remember when my son was born,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't think anything would change except I'd have a mouth to feed. A whole bunch of things changed.
A cute mouth to feed.
Yeah, he just lost another tooth. Now it's 2 toothless.
Oh my goodness.
But it did. It changed everything. Everything was suddenly about him instead of about me.
Mhm.
I could make a decision for myself about me and not worry as much about consequences, because if there were negative consequences, I'd deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
But negative consequences for another person are completely different. Now I have to think, can he deal with them? And by extension, it made me start doing that about my team. It made me start thinking, yeah, I want to do this new initiative. It's going to require a lot of hours, a lot of extra work, a lot of hard soul searching, a lot of deep dives on, the processes, and the effort's going to be humongous. Well, I can do that. That's no problem. Well, wait a minute. I'm not doing it alone. Can the other 10 people do that? Am I asking too much? Am I putting them in a situation where they can't succeed?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are things that each person can do that someone else can't do. I may be setting the bar according to what I know I can handle,
Mm-hmm.
but is that a bar other people can handle? And that becomes a very tricky thing, because do you want to lower the bar to the lowest level person in the room? No. That's like teaching a class for the slowest student. Now you're just slowing down the whole class. But by the same token, if you only teach it according to the fastest student in the class, you're leaving everybody else behind.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to figure out what's the right solution there. When are you pushing so hard that you're going to break people? And when are you being so casual that you're making it too easy and people aren't growing?
Yeah. So I want to ask you, if I were to come up to you and I'd say, should I start my own business? What would you say to me?
If you're asking me, the
Mhm.
answer is no.
Okay.
Because if you have to ask permission, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
If you come up to me and say, I've got this great idea, I'm going to start a business, can you see any holes? Can you offer any advice? That's fine. Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
But if you're asking whether you should even do it, the answer is no, because it's going to be 10 times harder than you ever thought it could be. And when it is that hard, you're going to give up because you weren't committed to doing it in the first place. You were asking permission.
Mm-hmm. And I want you to talk a little bit about your planning sessions, because I feel like that's a really good resource for some people that don't plan. So if
Sure.
someone was genuinely taking the efforts to start a business, like you
Mhm.
just said, I come to you and I have all these ideas. I'm just asking you, your opinion, like, hey, does this work? Not. Tell us how much planning has helped you, because maybe that could help them.
A mountain. You don't just start.
Mhm.
You have to plan. When we opened this business, we had a 30-page business plan written from beginning to end that sketched out how the whole first 5 years were going to go. It was literally down to the detail and the dollars expected for the first 3 years.
Mhm.
We had every position that we would need to fill up to 3 years listed, and what kind of a person we would need to fill that position when we got to that point. And it was incredibly specific. And I can tell you, we had a timeline and charts and everything for the first year, and every single thing on those charts and that timeline happened in the first 11 months. It was like clockwork. Like, I didn't believe it. I'm like, oh my God. This is like, I almost could have teleported into the future and written it and then moved back in time and said, here's how you're going to do this. And it continued up to 3 years. Where we were granular, it happened just like, now there were setbacks, there were problems, there were all kinds of things. But every benchmark, every size goal, every expectation of how many people it would take
Mhm.
was accurate.
Yeah.
Because we went deep and counted how would we do this, how many people and stuff. Now, every week, I spend anywhere from 2 to 10 hours behind closed doors planning on Sunday. I take all my notes from the week. I take all the meeting minutes. I take text messages and emails people have sent me with questions, ideas, thoughts, feedback, results, and I plan. I lay it all out. I look at it. I start making notes on Post-its, on little pieces of paper,
Color-coded.
and then color coordinate them. I write with different colored pens. I highlight with different colored markers, and it looks like confetti. It looks like some rainbow project. And then I start collating. I start taking things that fall within one product or project. I'll start taking those Post-its and putting 5 or 6 of them onto one page.
Mhm.
and grouping them according to precedence or category or who needs to handle them or how urgent they are. And from that, I start writing. And I write a plan for the coming week and what I'm going to do each day, who I'm going to need to engage with, whose help I need with different projects, who I need to go give a kick in the butt because I realize they're not hitting things, and who I need to go thank because they're killing it and doing good things. And that planning clarifies. Now, the week doesn't go exactly like that. Things happen. But I come in with a plan. Monday morning, I know what I'm there for. I know what I need to do this week.
Yeah. And I'm sure that has increased your efficiency and your productivity
Oh,
tremendously.
my God. When I first started doing it, I did it for an external reason. I had an executive assistant for the first time ever. Wasn't my idea. I said, I don't need an assistant. I can get my own. I don't need someone to get my coffee. I don't need someone doing those things. But I got strong-armed into it. I was told that I was wasting a lot of time doing things I shouldn't be doing at my position in a company of that size. And so I accepted, and I said, how the heck am I going to communicate with an assistant all the things I do and need? So I started creating the planning session so I could brief my assistant and give them something in writing to know what to expect from me. And it was about 90 days in that I was looking at the end of the week, and it was Friday, and I told my assistant to let me know what's next, because that's one of my things. Hey, okay, what's next?
What do we do now?
Whatever I just got done, I'm not sitting back. It's like, okay, that's done. What's next?
That is how you end a meeting now that I realize.
You always hear.
Yep. What's next?
We've accomplished something. We hit a goal. We've completed a project. What's next? And I said, okay, what's next? And she said, nothing, go home. And I said, shut up. And she's like, no, you're done. And I'm like, no, I mean for the week, not. She said, you're done. I'm like, bring me the week sheet, the list of everything I need to do this week.
Are you just trying to get me out of here?
Yeah, this must have been a really light week. You're trying to shield me from problems so I get a break. And she brought it in and I went through it and I'm like, yeah, everything is done. This must have been a really light week. So I pulled out previous week sheets and I looked back. It wasn't a light week. In fact, it was a pretty intense week. And I'm like, all of this is done. How did that happen? And I realized I'd gotten more done that week than I might have gotten done in a month the year prior. And the organization, the structure, the planning was paying dividends to the effect of I was getting months worth of work done in a week.
So the work never ends is what
No.
I'm hearing. So this is really why you shouldn't. If you listen to all of this and this seems like a lot, then I think the answer is you shouldn't start your own business. All right. So I had a couple people mention to me that when we did rapid fire questions last time, they weren't really rapid fire.
Yeah.
So now we're going to name this Jason style rapid fire. So I have a couple questions that we're going to ask. All right. So what's better, opening a business by yourself or with partners?
Not better, different. With partners, you have help, but you have the challenge of multiple opinions and multiple ideas about how it should go. So there's going to be things that will slow down because of that, and things will be easier because you're not doing it on your own. On your own, you make a decision, you do it. You can go faster. You don't have to explain yourself as much. You don't have to gain consent. You can just go. But it's all on you. You don't have a support staff. You don't have anybody else to lean on. It's all going to be on you.
Do you feel established?
Yeah. Yeah. The business has reached a point of maturity. My reputation has reached a point of maturity. My financial resources, the ability to not worry what's going to happen if, to say that financially I'm fine and that I can buy or do the things I want to do and take care of people the way I want to. Yeah, I think so.
So as you become more financially established, do you find yourself getting hooked on more?
No.
Okay.
I like things. Everybody does. Obviously, I'm 3 Maseratis instead of 1. But the stuff...
Can you get a pink one? Sorry.
No.
Okay.
The stuff is a natural byproduct of doing it right. I don't do the things that produce the money so that I can buy the stuff. I buy the stuff because I did the things that produce the money. And the stuff is nice. But my favorite place to live was a studio apartment. My favorite car was actually a Ford Focus. And I have nicer things now, and I do enjoy those things, but I could go without them tomorrow. I didn't buy an expensive SUV when I traded in my Tesla because I needed an expensive SUV. I bought the one I liked.
Yeah.
If I had found it at $40,000, that's what I would have spent. It was more than that, but I liked it.
By 10. By like 10 times, like your other one. What does the word contentment mean to you?
Another trick question. Contentment can mean you've reached a point where you can be pleased, and contentment can mean you've reached a point where you become complacent. I'll never be complacent because that feels like laziness. I don't like not doing things.
Yeah.
I couldn't retire and garden. It wouldn't work for me. I'd go insane.
I don't see you as a gardener.
No. I couldn't retire and fish. I couldn't, those kinds of cliche things wouldn't work for me. I like doing things. I like building things. I like growing things. I could have 54 hobbies if I retired, but most of my businesses have become hobbies too. So I just envision myself maybe the businesses that are more intense or stressful, maybe I move away from them and do more of the ones that are service-oriented and fun. But even saying those words, it's fun to work.
So if you could tell your past self something 10 years ago, what would it be?
It's not as hard as it needs to be. Don't make things harder. Don't use endurance to get through a problem when intelligence will get you through the problem. There are lots of times where I could have taken an easier way out that felt like I was cheating. I'm like, well, I can see another path, but if I take the harder road, that might make me learn more. Oftentimes, I took a more difficult path just to make sure I could, and I didn't have to. The smarter path wasn't a shortcut. It was just smarter. And it would have been faster. There's a difference between using your intellect and using the tools that you have versus cheating.
Work harder. Work smarter, not harder.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Do you think it's better for someone to never think anything is enough or be satisfied? And I think that's a funny one for you.
It is. I'm completely satisfied. I have a good group of friends. I have a great family. I have a great lifestyle monetarily and socially. I do the things I want to do. I don't do the things I don't want to do. So I am satisfied and I have enough. And next year I'll do more and have more and be more. Because it'll never be enough. It'll never be enough engagement. It'll never be enough fulfillment. It'll never be enough security. My kids are set. They're going to go to college. They're going to do whatever they want to do. They're never going to have to worry about money, but they're never going to have it handed to them either. There'll always be a safety net there somewhere. But I have, just like we have a complex plan about the business, I've got a complex plan about my estate planning. The kids don't just get it. It'll be in there in a trust for specific needs. And there are specific things that they should never have to worry about, whether they are safe physically, health-wise. They will never have to worry about, do I have good enough health insurance because what if I have a condition or something? They'll never have to worry if they're stricken with some kind of a lifelong illness or something, because they will always be provided for in that sense. But they're not going to be spoiled little silver spoon trust fund kids. They're not going to get a Corvette when they graduate college. They're not going to go buy a house with my money. It'll be there to protect them, but they're going to earn for themselves and accomplish for themselves.
Yeah, like you said in the beginning, you have to have passion, and that's going to teach them to have the passion to get what they want.
Yep.
And do what they want to do. If you could do it all over again, would you?
Absolutely. I'd do it better. I'd do it faster. I'd do it bigger. I'd do it bolder. There were times that I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to be mocked afterwards if I failed. I didn't want people to shove my own words back in my throat. I would have had fun with it. I would have had more fun telling people what we're about to do and then doing it than not saying it too loud in case we don't get it right, kind of thing.
Yeah. So I have one last question before we wrap this up. What shirt are you wearing today, Jason?
Who is John Galt?
Who is John Galt?
That's a good question.
We'll find out next week.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Ram, behind the camera, and Collie in spirit. Thank you, Jason, for being here.
Thank you.
My foot fell asleep like 3 times during the
Oh, no.
recording. So,
Got to find a better chair.
Yeah. Ram. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.